Good morning. Welcome back after a long gap. So, we'll continue with history portion. I think we have done with ancient and medieval last session, and we need to start the modern India. We have completed the medieval, so we need to start the modern India. The very important portion, modern India. Look, India was known as Golden Bird. Since we have studied the ancient India, so India is known as Golden Bird. Because of its material prosperity. In ancient India, most of the Greek literatures, they were unanimous on this issue that India is a golden bird. Because the largest exporter of consumer goods was exported from India, and then bullions was flowing in this country. Bullions was flowing in this country. The largest exporter of consumer goods and the bullions was flowing in this country. In medieval India also, India remained as exporter of consumer goods, and the gold and silver was flowing in this country. But in modern India, what we see that the Britishers, particularly British, reversed the balance of trade. India became importer of consumer goods and our bullions started flowing out of this country. This is the change that we see in the perspective of ancient and medieval, and then we have the perspective of modern India. So our gold and silver started flowing out of this country. This is the feature that why golden bird turned into bird. Golden bird had turned into bird. So golden bird turned into bird, the golden gaib. This is how the modern India is very special for the Britishers. That prosperous state of India became a most poverty-ridden country. So let's talk about the modern India in this perspective. I hope you understand the balance of trade. This is the main feature. The draining of wealth from India to England. The beauty of London was mainly because of the bones and bloods of the cotton weavers of India and artisans of India. So beauty of London was mainly because of the bones and bloods of the cotton weavers of India. Before we start, some important things you need to understand. That Europeans came, the advent of Europeans, we will study from here. The advent of Europeans. Advent of Europeans. Portuguese came, Dutch came, Dutch means Holland, English, Danes means Denmark, and then French came. So Portuguese, Dutch, English, Danes, French. This is the series of the Europeans entered in this trading competition with India through the oceanic route. The oceanic route had started. Portuguese came in 1498 AD and English came here in our 1608 AD. So you can see that there is a 110 years gap, 110 years gap between Portuguese and English. Portuguese and English, 110 years of gap. 1608 AD. There is 110 years gap between Portuguese and the English. And in this 110 years of the gap, English overshadowed all Europeans and then overshadowed the Indian traders also. And after 150 years of the period, I hope you remember the Battle of Plassey for your school exam information. So, Battle of Plassey. Look at the timeline, 1608 to 1757. Look at the timeline of 150 years. So, 150 years continuously this company remained as a trading organization. And after 150 years, it had transformed into political power by capturing Bengal. So capture of Bengal was the biggest gift because Bengal was the most prosperous province at that time. So 1757, Battle of Plassey. So 150 years. So here you write one sentence that East India Company did not came to India with the objective of becoming the political power, with the objective of becoming the political power, but circumstances in India persuaded company to aspire for political power. So this sentence you keep in mind. East India Company never came to India with the objective of becoming the political power, but circumstances in India persuaded company to aspire for political power. So you can understand, we will imagine the circumstances of company, circumstances of India persuaded company to aspire for political power. So 1757 Battle of Plassey. So 1608 to 1757. Battle of Plassey. Circumstances in India persuaded company to aspire for political power. So 1757, when company captured Bengal, According to R.P. Dutt, India today according to R.P. Dutt, India today, this is beginning of colonialism. This is beginning of colonialism. R.P. Dutt in his book India Today, he said that this is beginning of colonialism. This is beginning of colonialism. Means, what is colonialism? When political power was utilized in exploitation of territory to benefit the mother country. So, political power was utilized in exploitation of territories to benefit the mother country. This is called colonialism. Exploitation of territory to benefit the mother country. This is called colonialism. This is called colonialism. So 1757 colonialism had started, and East India Company captured 60% of India and it became British India. 60% of India became British India in 100 years till 1857. So 60% of India became British India, 1757 to 1857. And after 1857, 1947 till 1947, the British Parliament was ruling over India. British Parliament was ruling over India. British Parliament was ruling over India. So 100 years by the company and 90 years by the British Parliament. This is 190 years of the British colonialism. 190 years of the British colonialism. So 100 years by the company and 90 years by the British Parliament. So this is 190 years of the British colonialism. So 1857 to 1947. So when there was a massive revolt, of 1857, then British East India Company was abolished and British Parliament had taken direct control over India. British Parliament had taken direct control over India. The rule of the British East India Company was abolished and British Parliament had taken direct control over India. First, understand the timeline, then we'll come to the syllabus. So when British Parliament had taken control over India, then British Parliament, first understand this graph, and if not even then you keep in the mind, it will help you a lot in understanding many things. I told you that when British Parliament had taken control over India, so British Parliament was trying to increase its control over India, policy of consolidation. Policy of consolidation. British Parliament was trying to consolidate over India, the policy of consolidation. Consolidation. So British Parliament was trying to consolidate its position in India. Then we have nationalism. So British Parliament was trying to consolidate its position in India, and in India there was rise of nationalism. These two things. Immediately after 1857, means after 1858, you can see the two things going parallel. British Parliament was trying to consolidate its position, and then in India there was a rise of nationalism. Means the common Indians now became more comfortable in identifying themselves as an Indian rather than Punjabi, Marathi, Gujarati, Bengali. So therefore the rise of nationalism gradually had created. No doubt in this that British policy created atmosphere of nationalism. There are many factors, but this is one of the factor. So here, for this point, you write one sentence which I will explain later, or you'll understand yourself. You can write one sentence. I am just dictating you. Tools and mechanism. Tools and mechanism used by British to exercise control over India. Similar tools and mechanism used by Indians, similar tools and mechanism used by Indians to overthrow British rule from India. Similar tools and mechanism used by Indians to overthrow British rule from India. So this sentence you keep on in your mind. So tools and mechanism used by British to exercise control over India, consolidation, similar tools and mechanisms used by Indians to overthrow British rule from India. Means rise of nationalism was very much associated with the policy of consolidation. So after some time, Indian National Congress came into existence. Indian National Congress. You know Indian National Congress, it came into existence in 1885. So once Indian National Congress came into existence, this nationalism got a political platform. So once nationalism got a political platform, then it had transformed into Indian national movement. It had transformed into Indian national movement. Once nationalism got a political platform, it had transformed into Indian national movement. nationalism had transformed into Indian national movement. Had transformed into Indian national movement. So British government also changed the policy, and this is the policy of divide and rule. Divide and rule. So British government also changed the policy. This is called policy of divide and rule. So with the rise of Indian national movement, this is a policy called policy of divide and rule. So after establishment of Indian National Congress, this nationalism got a political platform. This nationalism got a political platform. Nationalism got a political platform, and therefore it transformed into Indian national movement. And British government, in order to break the solidarity of Indian national movement, started the policy of divide and rule. Try to understand this graph, that how the two policies, the policy of British and the Indian nationalism, is moving. Then after advent of Gandhi, he is a wonder boy of India. Advent of Gandhi in Indian politics after 1915, the dynamics of the Indian national movement had changed. And then Indian national movement transformed into mass movement. Transformed into mass movement. The dynamics of the Indian national movement had changed, and Indian national movement transformed into mass movement. Indian national movement transformed into mass movement. Because Gandhi mobilized the masses, and once the British got interacted with the mass, first interaction of the British, I hope you remember, or you can understand, this is called non-cooperation movement. So, non-cooperation movement. This is the first mass movement. So, non-cooperation movement forced, this mass movement forced to follow the policy that is called policy of compromise. Policy of compromise. Policy of compromise means British now started compromising with the rising mass movement. So once colonial power started compromising, means its control mechanism keep on losing, and 1947 it became zero. So now the colonial power had to exit, and the mass movement had resulted in independence. Independence. Mass movement had resulted in independence. So try to understand this graph, that consolidation led to the rise of nationalism. Consolidation led to the rise of nationalism. Indian national movement forced British to start the policy of divide and rule. And then mass movement is a policy of compromise. Policy of compromise. was the policy of compromise. Consolidation, Indian national movement, and then policy of compromise. So, are you able to understand this? Are you able to understand this? Hopefully, if you understood this graph, that means you have a panoramic view of about the national movement, particularly after 1858. And we will use this graph when you reach there at 1858. But this is the way that at least you have a bird's eye views. So, the mass movement for Britishers to go for compromise. So, when you read some standard text, they call this as a war of position. War of position. War of position or position of war. War of position or position of war. So, war of position between rising nationalism and control mechanism of the British. Rising nationalism and control mechanism of the British. This is called war of position. Rising nationalism and control mechanism of the British. So, this is the way that we will progress our national movement. 1947, when colonial power started compromising, that means it forced British to exit from India. Right. So, when the colonial power started compromising, it forced British to exit from India. Okay. So, now we will start the syllabus right from the beginning, and I will dictate some of the issues in modern India, because it will help you in exploring the mains also. Okay. So, Portuguese. You know, there is a term called geographical discoveries. Geographical discoveries, that is discovery of new trade route through oceans. New trade route by oceans. This is called geographical discoveries. So, geographical discoveries are discovery of new trade route by oceans. Non-cooperation movement was the first mass movement which forced British to go for compromise. There are many movements will come, non-cooperation, CDM, Quit India movement. CDM means civil disobedience movement. Quit India movement, that will lead to independence. But because of this mass movement, it forced British to go for compromise. So, non-cooperation movement and other movements lead to the independence, but it forced British to go for, until unless British will be moved out from here, then how India will become independent. So, non-cooperation movement leads to compromise to the Britishers. and leads to the independence for the Indian national movement. Okay, so geographical discoveries. Geographical discoveries, a new trade route, that is oceanic trade route from Europe to India, and many parts of the world got connected through the oceanic route. Many parts of the world got connected to the oceanic route. So 1498, Vasco da Gama, he came to India with the help of an Indian merchant, Abdul Majid. He was a Gujarati merchant in Portugal. So you can imagine that Gujarati merchant in Portugal means, so you can find Gujarati anywhere on the earth. Anywhere on the earth. So wherever you don't find human, you can find the Gujarati trading. They are the traders. So Portuguese, Vasco da Gama, came to India with the help of Abdul Majid, a Portugali travelers. So Abdul Majid came to India. From Portugal to India, 1498, after crossing the Africa, Indian Ocean entirely, so he reached Calicut. Abdul Majid, he reached Calicut. (1498). The ruler of Calicut, Jamorin. Jamorin was the title of the ruler. Jamorin. The name of the ruler was Manu Bikram Barma. Manu Bikram Barma. He welcomed Vasco da Gama. Manu Bikram Barma, he welcomed Vasco da Gama. So Manu Bikram Barma permitted Vasco da Gama to have trade in his spices and to set up factory there. To set up factory there. So Calicut. So when Vasco da Gama came, somebody tested him, the black pepper. You know, black pepper is very fascinating for the Europeans. In ancient India, black pepper was called Yaban Priya, beloved of the foreigners. So it was an opium for them. So Vasco da Gama returned back to Portugal after loading so much of the black pepper in the ship. And when he sold it in the world market, that is the European market, then 70 times more profit he enjoyed. 70 times more profit he enjoyed. So Jamorin, Manu Bikram Barma permitted. So Calicut. First Portuguese factory was opened at Kollam. As opened as Kollam, at Kollam. First Portuguese factory opened at Kollam. And subsequently Cochin. So Calicut, Kollam or Cochin, these three places the Portuguese had already established, well established on the west coast. So Calicut, Kollam and Cochin. Cochin was the capital of the Portuguese power in India. Cochin was a capital of Portuguese power in India. Vasco da Gama, he came 3 times. So he became habitual of traveling on the seas, oceans. So he came 3 times from Portugal to India. And the Vasco da Gama actually had presented a condition that the Portuguese government will appoint viceroy here. So Portuguese Vasco da Gama paved the way for Portuguese power in India. So thrice he came, 3 times he came, Vasco da Gama. So after Vasco da Gama, first Portuguese governor Francis de Almeida was appointed. Francis de Almeida is the first Portuguese governor. So government of Portugal had appointed Francis de Almeida for first Portuguese governor. So 1505 to 1509. For 4 years he remained as a governor. He followed the blue water policy. So blue water policy means control over the Arabian Sea, and Indian Ocean, control over Arabian Sea and Indian Ocean. Blue water policy and Indian Ocean. So only trade was the purpose. Only trade was the purpose, and not too involved in local politics. Only trade was a purpose and not too involved in local politics. Not too involved in local politics. Only trade was the purpose and not too involved in local politics. politics. So, not involved in local politics. First Portuguese governor, Francis de Almeida. But when Portuguese started coming, then before Portuguese there was Arabians who dominated the trade on this coast. So Portuguese will have conflict with the Arabians, obviously, because the hegemony of the Arabians was challenged by Portuguese. So Portuguese will have to have a conflict with the Arabians. So Portuguese versus Arabians. Versus Arabians had started immediately. Portuguese versus Arabians had started immediately. Because it was a great challenge by Portuguese to the Arabians, because before Portuguese, Arabians had a complete command over this western coast. So, ruler of Gujarat invited the Egyptian fleet, the fleet from Egypt. Egypt was under the Turkish rule. So, ruler of Gujarat invited the Egyptian fleet. A joint alliance was made against the Portuguese. Joint alliance was made against the Portuguese. Joint alliance was made against Portuguese. So, what happened during the time of Almeida? A ruler of Gujarat plus Egyptian naval fleet combined challenged the Almeida. So 1508, Battle of Chaul. 1508, Battle of Chaul. Alliance defeated Almeida. Alliance defeated Almeida. The son of Francis de Almeida had also died in this battle. So there was a massive casualty. But 1509, Almeida bounced back. Battle of Diu. And this time, Almeida defeated the alliance. And this was a brilliant victory. After that, the Portuguese had lost. Arabians had lost. So, look, in some of the websites, Wikipedia, there is some different answer, Calicut, Cochin. But the first factory was established at Kollam. So, you keep this thing in record. Kollam. Fine. The first Portuguese factory was Kollam. In Wikipedia, we can say Calicut. Calicut was the first Portuguese settlement, but the factory, that is warehouse, at Kollam. In some of the books like Spectrum, they wrote Cochin also. But the Kollam is the right answer. So Almeida defeated the alliance. Battle of Diu. So, this is the reason why this fact is considered as not so important, because of the veracity of the fact is not so authenticated. So, Battle of Diu. I hope you keep on pointing all these things in your notes. All these things are after Almeida, Albuquerque. Albuquerque, he became the governor of Portuguese power in India. Albuquerque. (1509 to 15). Albuquerque. Real founder of Portuguese power in India. Real founder of Portuguese power in India. He started the system of cartage. Cartage. He started system of cartage means permission. Permission from the Portuguese. That means if any ship had to cross in the Indian Ocean or in the particularly in the Arabian Sea, they had to take cartage from the Portuguese, permission from the Portuguese, and that is something like that of putting the pass. So, permission from Portuguese. So, this is called cartage. Otherwise, Portuguese will confiscate the ship. So, cartage was the main source of income that had started later on. But anyway, so this is cartage, the permission. All the ship had to take cartage from the Portuguese settlement for secure traveling. All the ship. Started taking permission from the Portuguese, started taking cartage for safe navigation. To avoid confiscation of ship from the Portuguese. To avoid confiscation of ship from the Portuguese. So, Albuquerque had started this. (1510), Albuquerque captured Goa. Captured Goa. Albuquerque captured Goa from the ruler of Bijapur. From the ruler of Bijapur. Portuguese captured Goa from the ruler of Bijapur. So, when Albuquerque was here, then in southern India, there was a great ruler, greatest ruler of the Vijayanagar Empire. His name was Krishnadeva Roy. So, Krishnadeva Roy, he concluded treaty with the Portuguese. Krishnadeva Roy, he concluded treaty with the Portuguese. concluded treaty with the Portuguese. He concluded treaty with the Portuguese. The Krishnadev Rai, he was the greatest ruler of India at that time. So Krishnadev Rai, he was the greatest ruler of India at that time. And we have seen during the medieval India also that Krishnadev Rai, what was the terms of the treaty? The terms of treaty was very simple. Portuguese were very good horse merchant. So Portuguese will sell all the horses to Vijayanagar Empire only. And then Vijayanagar state, that is Krishnadev Rai, will help Portuguese in expansion towards Bijapur. So there was a two-pronged strategy. 1511 there is a treaty, the first treaty and the second treaty. First treaty. The first treaty is that Krishnadev Rai will receive all the horses from the Portuguese. Krishnadev Rai will receive all the horses from the Portuguese. And second, Krishnadev Rai will help Portuguese in expansion towards Bijapur. Krishnadev Rai will help Portuguese in expansion towards Bijapur. After this treaty, the first Portuguese ambassador was appointed. First Portuguese ambassador was appointed. Friar Luis, he was appointed in the court of Vijayanagar Empire. Friar Luis, he was appointed as an ambassador in the court of Vijayanagar Empire. Albuquerque abolished sati from Goa. Sati from Goa. Abolished sati from Goa. Krishnadev Rai abolished, Portuguese abolished sati from Goa. Albuquerque, he encouraged Portuguese to marry with the Indian women. To increase their population. To marry with the Indian women to increase their population. So soldiers and the sailors, they married with the Indian women, although it had created some social conflict in the western coast. Social conflict in the western coast. So Albuquerque was a very important personality for the Portuguese power in India. Then some other governors, not one by one, important one. Then we have the one governor, Nino da Cunha. Nino da Cunha. Nino da Cunha. Nino da Cunha, during his time, the capital of Portuguese shifted from Cochin to Goa. So now they decided to make Goa a very permanent base, Cochin to Goa. Cochin to Goa. Nino da Cunha established factory at Hooghly and Sandthorn. Hooghly and Sandthorn. Sandthorn is near Madras. Sandthorn is near Madras. Hooghly and Sandthorn. Nino da Cunha. So two settlements is a very big settlement. So during the time of Nino da Cunha, Mughal ruler, we have studied the Mughal Empire. So Mughal ruler Humayun invaded over Gujarat. Invaded over Gujarat. So ruler of Gujarat Bahadur Shah decided to take help from Portuguese. Bahadur Shah decided to take help from Portuguese. Decided to take help from Portuguese. So he gave Portuguese two important ports in the western coast, Salsette and Bassein. So Salsette and Bassein was taken by Portuguese. This is a very, very big gain in the western coast. So island of Bassein and the Salsette was taken by Bahadur Shah, taken by Portuguese from Bahadur Shah. So Nino da Cunha, this period is also very eventful period. One more Portuguese governor, which is a very important personality, and there are very good facts related to him. Last year there was a direct question in prelims. Alfonso de Souza. 1542 to 45, Alfonso de Souza. Alfonso de Souza, during his time, there was a large-scale conversion to Christianity. Portuguese were involved in conversion to Christianity. Conversion to Christianity. Large number of conversion to Christianity you can watch here during the time of Alfonso de Souza. Large scale conversion to Christianity. (1542 to 45). During his time, Francis Xavier, the very reputed missionary, Francis Xavier, he came to India. Francis Xavier came to India. He converted 7 lakh untouchables into Christianity. 7 lakh untouchables was implemented, converted to Christianity. So he was a very revered saint among the Catholics of India. So he had great love for Goa. This is how the culture of Goa had changed totally. So he had a great love for Goa. So Francis Xavier, he went to China. He wanted to convert entire China into Christianity. So he went to China. This is the story that was asked in examination. So Francis Xavier, he went to China and he expressed his wish to be buried in Goa if died. So he wanted that he should be buried in Goa if died in China. So he went to China and died there. So he was buried in China. But his enthusiastic supporter went to China, exhumed his body and brought back to Goa. And here his mummy was created and kept in a church of Goa. Kept in Church of Goa, known as Bom Jesus Basilica. This is the name of the church where the mummy of the Francis Xavier is kept. So Bom Jesus Basilica. So he died in China, buried in China. But his enthusiastic followers brought this dead body to Goa again, and here his mummy was placed in Church of Goa, known as Bom Jesus Basilica, where his dead body was kept. Bom Jesus Basilica. Every year there is a feast organized by this church for the common people. Each year there is a feast organized by the common people. Bom Jesus Basilica. So these are some of the important facts related to the Portuguese. Portuguese introduced tomato, chili, potato. No Portuguese, no samosas. Many things. So no Portuguese, no samosas. Tomato, tobacco, potato, chilies. Tobacco also. No cigarette. So many things was introduced by Portuguese. Tomato, chili, potato, tobacco. Portuguese introduced feitorias. To consolidate the trade. Consolidate the trade. The feitorias was basically of fortified territories. Fortified territories. It is like a fort. Secured Portuguese establishment. It's like a fort. Secured Portuguese establishment known as feitorias. So Portuguese had established advantage. There was no challenge from any Europeans for a century at least. So actually Portuguese and Spain had a very good alliance. All the technologies used by Spanish, which are very good in navigation, big ship, light shade means that is green, and then magnetic compass. So these are the things that actually Spanish technology was very superior. Spain was intended for America, both North and South America. And Portuguese was aiming in the Southeast Asia. But the Portuguese had dependency on the Spanish naval superiority. And there was no challenger to the Spanish Navy in the Atlantic at least. So therefore the Portuguese also have a Spanish dependency and at the same time big support from the Navy. So what happened? Despite the fact that Portuguese had advantage for 110 years, the Portuguese power lost very easily. And then Portuguese no more remain in existence, only Goa remained with them till 1961, but Portuguese lost all the settlements. So why Portuguese lost? The causes for the defeat of Portuguese power. Causes of the defeat of Portuguese power. causes for the defeat of Portuguese power. The first reason of the defeat is that 1588 the Spanish naval ship Armada. This is something like you can't go anywhere around if there is Armada. So Spanish naval ship Armada was defeated by England. So Portuguese lost the navy support. And English, Dutch entered in the Cape route to reach India. So now English and Dutch also started reaching towards India. English also started reaching towards India. 1588. Spanish Navy Armada was defeated by England. Second, the state of Portugal was in the declining stage. What do you mean by declining stage? The state of Portugal was a declining state. The state of Portugal was in the state of decline. Their population was very less. 10 lakh population was there. 10 lakh population was there. Their population was very less. The state of Portugal was in the state of decline. Judiciary was very corrupt. Only feudals enjoyed the social prestige. So social prestige only for the feudals. Traders, they don't have social support. Traders, they don't have social support. So traders, they don't have social support. So declining state of affair. The population was only 10 lakh. Judiciary was corrupt. Feudals, feudals only had the social prestige, and then traders, they don't have the social support. Third, Portuguese were involved in conversion to Christianity. Christianity. Marriage with the Indian women. Marriage with Indian women. So it had created the social conflict. So involved in conversion to Christianity, marriage with the Indian women. So it had created the atmosphere of social conflict. Social conflict, which undermined their nature of trade. Which undermine their nature of trade. Which undermine their nature of trade. Fourth point. They frequently change the nature of trade. Frequently change the nature of trade. Frequently change the nature of trade. They started with spices, then horse trade, and finally they started trade in bullions. So spice trade, horse trade, and then started trading in bullions, and cartage remained the main source of income. So they never got perfection of trade. Perfection of trade. So spice, horse, bullions. So never had any perfection of trade. Fifth, Portuguese were more into profit maximization rather than consolidation of their territories. Consolidation of their territories. Consolidation of their territories. So profit maximization rather than consolidation of their territories. Sixth, Portuguese lost Bombay as Bombay was given in a dowry after marriage of Catherine Braganza with Charles. So Portuguese lost Bombay because the Portuguese gave Bombay as a dowry in marriage between Catherine Braganza and the Charles, British Prince Charles. And Charles gave this Bombay to East India Company. To East India Company. Charles gave Bombay to East India Company. Catherine Braganza with Charles, and Charles gave Bombay to East India Company. Charles gave this Bombay to East India Company on lease. So biggest trading center was lost by Portuguese, and then it was got by Bombay, got by East India Company. Seventh, discovery of Brazil. Means Portuguese entered in Brazil, and the resources of Brazil was also very much advantageous, very much advantageous. So resources of Brazil was also very much advantageous. It was easy for Portuguese to approach Brazil rather than coming to India. So their attention was diverted. Their attention was diverted. Their attention was diverted. Discovery of Brazil. So these are the regions that by Portuguese power had lost in India. So only Goa remained with the Portuguese till 1961. So the one by one, the Portuguese. So out of the many powers, the Portuguese came first, and Portuguese did not able to maintain the hold. Not able to maintain the hold. And Portuguese power lost in India. The second European company that entered in the trading competition, it was Dutch. So when we say after Vasco da Gama, we have Francis de Almeida or Albuquerque. So when you say real founder, means the Albuquerque had established many factories and consolidated its position by putting a regular Portuguese military, captured Goa, and overall the best among all was the conclusion of treaty with the Krishnadeva Rai, which is a very important part for the establishment of treaty. So 1511 Krishnadeva Rai concluded a treaty. So yes, Goa was also introduced by them. Okay, agreed. What is Goa Inquisition means? It is a imposition of Catholic orthodoxy in Goa. So that was aggressive elimination of the temples and other religious places and razing it, and then construction of the church. So that is called the Portuguese Inquisition, or the orthodoxy of the Christianity was to be established in Goa. It's called Goa Inquisition. So Portuguese lost all the settlements in the Cochin, and then we have Calicut, everywhere only Goa remained. The region of the loss of the Portuguese power, I told you that when the trade declined, there is no relevance of these Cochin or the Calicut. But Goa was very much rooted because of the Christianity was very dominant there, and Portuguese had a very strong settlement in Goa compared to other places. Okay, fine. Then Dutch. Portuguese faced challenge from Dutch only. The first challenge came. Look, in Europe, Spain and Portugal, they were their partners. Spain and Portugal, they were the partners. And therefore, the English and Dutch also created alliance to challenge this alliance. They were the partners. So they had developed a better technology than the Portuguese. Good technology was developed. So therefore, Dutch East India Company, it came to India in 1602. It came to India in 1602. Dutch gave major challenge to Portuguese. In fact, Dutch had snatched many Portuguese locations in India. So Dutch gave major challenge to Portuguese. Portuguese had lost many settlements in India, one by one. So Dutch East India Company was established in 1602. First Dutch factory was established at Masulipatam. So Dutch was aiming at the east coast. Basically, Dutch wanted to have trade in Indian cotton. One of the biggest thing that you can see about Dutch, that Indian cotton got market. Indian cotton got market in Europe. Indian cotton textile got market in Europe. Dutch also established factory in Southeast Asia. Particularly, Dutch was more concerned for the Indonesia. So Dutch established factory in Southeast Asia and more concerned in Indonesia. Dutch also snatched Sri Lanka from Portuguese. Dutch also snatched Sri Lanka from Portuguese. But in the Congress of Vienna 1815, all the Dutch territory was given to France, and from the France it was taken by English. So Dutch captured Portuguese settlement in Ceylon, but after Congress of Vienna 1815, all the Dutch settlement was given to France, and subsequently it was snatched by British. Subsequently, it was snatched by British. So Sri Lanka was first taken by Dutch from the English. But immediately after the Portuguese power had settled here, English also came back to back. Look at here. Portuguese came, Dutch came, and then 1608 English came, back to back. Both having the same design. They were partners in Europe, but now they became the trading rivals in India. They were the trading rivals in India. 1608 English East India Company was established. So only 6 years of the gap between English and the Dutch. (1602) 1608. So both started in competition at both India and Indonesia. Both India and Indonesia. Their competition was in India and Indonesia. But very soon their English and the Dutch turned violent, in which the Battle of Amboyana. Amboyana is in Indonesia. When Dutch massacred the English, Dutch massacred the English. And thereafter, this battle lasted for the long time. It continued like anything. Lasted for a long time. It continued like anything. So English versus Dutch had started. It started from Indonesia, and then it had a long time. So 1667, there was compromise between English and Dutch. Between English and Dutch. So after Battle of Amboyana, in which Englishmen were massacred by Dutch, and thereafter long rivalry had started between them. 1667 there was a compromise between English and Dutch. English will take control over India. In India, there will be English East India Company, but Dutch will maintain its territory in India. What is the compromise? So English will take control over India, but Dutch will maintain all its territory in India. Dutch will maintain all its territory in India. Dutch will maintain all its territory in India. And Dutch will take care of Indonesia. English will not be there. So there was some concession given to Dutch in India because Dutch came early. And Indonesia, Dutch will take care of Indonesia. English will not take any settlement in Indonesia. This is compromise between English and Dutch. This is compromise between English and Dutch. So have you taken the note of this? So what is the settlement? What is the compromise? So I said that the Sri Lanka was of the Portuguese territory. It was taken by Dutch. But in Congress of Vienna, Vienna Congress was there for after defeat of Napoleon, Vienna Congress was arranged and some reconfiguration of the map was done. So in the Congress of Vienna, this territory was given to France, and then from France it was captured by English. And English controlled the Sri Lanka till 1948. This is in the Vienna Congress of 1815. Okay, look at here. So this is the compromise. And finally, another war between English and Dutch, that was in 1759-60. This is called Battle of Bedara. Bedara is in Hooghly, near Hooghly. Battle of Bedara. Final defeat of Dutch by the hands of English. Dutch is out of the scene. So final defeat of Dutch in the Battle of Bedara. Bedara is near Hooghly, 1759-60. So final defeat of Dutch. So Battle of Bedara. Battle of Bedara. So these are the important points of the Dutch. These are the important points of the Dutch. So we have seen Portuguese, we have seen Dutch. So it was called East India Company because all the companies were coming for India and the East. East means Eastern Hemisphere. Okay, so Battle of Amboyana. Dutch massacred the English. After that, the war started, and this is a place where there was a compromise between English and the Dutch. So final defeat of Dutch was in the Battle of Bedara, 1759-60. Battle of Bedara. So Portuguese, then Dutch. Now we will see about the English East India Company. and you can understand that English East India Company would come, will dominate till 1947. That is called the rise of British power from Plassey to Diwani. So we'll complete that how English East India Company was so empowered and what advantages, what conditions that prompted East India Company to reach to such a high position. So that's this promptness. So English East India Company. So before establishment of East India Company, many survey was made. And after lots of survey report, this company came into existence. Lots of survey report, this company came into existence. So we will take a break, and after the break, we will start the East India Company in power. So rise of the East India Company after the break.